Welcome to the Building Materials Sales and Marketing Podcast, presented by Mark Mitchell, a sales and marketing consultant who specializes in helping building materials companies overcome difficult sales problems. Mark is the author of the book Building Materials Channel Marketing and a frequent speaker at industry events.
Hi, this is Mark Mitchell from Whizard Strategy. Welcome to this latest podcast of mine. Today, I want to talk about what is worrying building material companies in preparation for my upcoming Whizard Summit. One of the things that we do is to interview each of the attendees to find out what's on their mind, what are they worried about, what would they like to know more about. And I always find that they tell us to be very informative and insightful, because we want to do this also because we tailor each of these to their needs. We don't have a stock canned presentation like your 8th grade history teacher that pulls out the textbook. Each of these, because our market is changing on a regular basis and the needs of the attendees are changing, we want to keep pace with that to make sure that we provide them what they need, the most benefit from coming to the Whizard Summit. But this is not about the Whizard Summit. I just wanted to give you where this information came from. And today's podcast goes out to Brian Hetherington from Huber Engineered Woods. Brian's another one of those great guys that reminds me that people are listening to my podcast. And whenever I slow down and I see Brian at a trade show, he stops me to remind me, where's your next podcast? Please keep it up. So as always, I appreciate comments or feedback from you that you are listening. And secondly, subjects that you'd like me to cover on these podcasts. Here's what is worrying building material companies today. And the list I'm going to go through is not prioritized. It's just a list of the 12 things that we heard from them that they're the most concerned with. And it'll be interesting to see if these are things that are on your mind, or perhaps there's some things that we'll uncover that you should be thinking about. The first issue that they shared with us was, how can I get my company to keep up with the tremendous pace of change that we're facing? Customer needs are changing. The pace of business continues to speed up. Entire markets are being turned upside down. The most effective ways to sell and market our products are constantly changing. What's worked for us in the past is no longer working for us today. And a part of that leads to the next one, and that is the second point they brought up was the culture of our company will only allow so much change. And how can I stay focused on the areas that we can change and improve instead of worrying about where we can't make changes or it's going to be harder or take more time? I thought that was interesting, this idea of our culture will only permit so much change. We think a company can stop and turn on a dime and be more like a Silicon Valley company, but building material companies aren't set up to change. They can, but it's more of a step-by-step process. The third issue they brought up was, as the economy is good today, business is good. Compared to when we went through the last recession, there's a good volume of sales. Orders are coming in. New customers are being acquired. It's almost like maybe things are a little too good, which has led to a little too much comfort and complacency in many companies, that there isn't, if you will, a fire under their butt to let's not let off. So the attendees ask us, how do I instill a sense of urgency in our team and our company? So I thought that was interesting. We all, in a number of categories, I can identify companies who don't let up. They just are on. They're just aggressive. They're just go, go, go. It doesn't matter whether business is down or up. They're constantly going. Where many companies, when business tends to get good, they kind of like, it's okay. Things are good. The fourth issue they brought up was the roles and importance of our customers are changing. While architects, contractors, builders, and others are still very important customers, there are also new types of customers and influencers who are playing a larger role. How can we be more proactive with these changes instead of just reacting to them? For example, when you've lost a sale, all of a sudden you go, why did that happen? That's something we should pay attention to. And now you're already behind the curve. The fifth point they brought up was, how do we keep pace with how fast our customers are moving? For example, if an architect contacts us by phone or email with an inquiry, how do we respond fast enough to keep them from losing interest or contacting our competitors? So if you think about in the architect's personal life, he can go on Amazon, he can read reviews, he can get questions answered, and he can place an order and it will arrive in 2 days. And in building materials, he could inquire, and perhaps it's an email that goes who knows where, that gets someone looks at who knows when, or perhaps even a great internal customer service person answers the phone. And perhaps the inquiry requires the response of a salesperson. Well, one of the points they brought up was, how do I speed up the time from when the inquiry comes in to the salesperson gets it to follow up? Because in today's world, people no longer have patience. They don't want to wait 15 minutes. They don't want an hour. They certainly don't want to wait a day or more. Within that time, they're trying to get this issue resolved right now. And they don't have patience because they've been taught they don't need patience in many other parts of their life. So what happens is if they don't get the answer, they will continue looking online or talking to people to get the answer. And many times, they'll either lose interest in your product, or secondly, they will get the answer they need from a competitor faster than from you. Neither of those is a good situation. So this idea about how to be extremely fast in responses to customer inquiries. The sixth subject they brought up was, how do we decide which of our traditional methods of sales and marketing to keep and which ones to stop, and redirect the resources to newer, more effective methods? So, for example, should we still go to this big trade show? Okay, we always go. We're concerned what would happen if we didn't go, but that's a lot of money that perhaps if we spent a different way, we would get better results. And there are other programs that we do. Perhaps it's an annual customer trip. Perhaps you're still printing a catalog. And there's many of these legacy programs that people are comfortable with. Probably people in your company are more comfortable with than your customers see a need for, but they're hard to let go of. So they wanted to know, how can we identify which of these programs we should let go of so that we can move into newer, more effective techniques. And this leads to the seventh point, in which the manufacturers told us we are overwhelmed with all of the new marketing tools that are available to us. Because we have no or little experience with these new tools, how can we decide which one of them are best for us? So when they think about, we hear about social media, we hear about advertising online or retargeting or on Facebook. We hear about this thing called content marketing. We think we're doing SEO, but we're not sure. We heard about marketing automation and outbound emails and conversions and all these other new terms and processes. And, how do we figure out which of these is best for us? Because unfortunately, if we talk to one of those companies, of course, their solution is best for us because that's what they want to sell us. So how do we find which one? And then, so we can choose. And then how do we find the right resources to help us go there? Because we've heard horror stories about companies who got sold one of these new tools and spent a lot of money and then got no return for it. So this is a new area that they're looking for guidance. And then the eighth one, which I thought is really interesting, is how can we get better insights into the changing needs of our customers? I see this all the time, where salespeople are in the face of customers on a daily basis. They hear what the customers' needs are. They see the change. They hear the frustration from customers of dealing with your company or your competitors. Yet somehow there isn't a path, an open or welcoming path for that information to get up into the company that proper changes can be made. So how do we get that information? And then how can that information be communicated to the right areas of the company that this information needs to get to in order to improve your customer satisfaction? For example, you may have a common one that you hear is customer service is not as good as the customer wants or your competitors. But the customer service person is off in their own little world, running to hit a budget number and not being measured on customer satisfaction. Well, you as a salesperson probably hear this all day long and just have to shake your head and go, I know, that's just the way it is. So the leadership really wants to be attuned to this and figure out how to get that up there. So that was another important issue we're going to address this week. And then ninth was, what does this shift to more panelized modular construction, offsite construction mean to everyone? How much can it hurt your business, and how will it hurt your business? And how can a building materials company turn these new customers in new companies into customers? And so there's a tremendous amount of interest that is centered around companies like Katerra, and other companies that are building products, either panelized, modular, factory built, component, whatever. I don't think we've settled in yet on a term, but the writing's on the wall that they're going to take a chunk of business, and the way they do business with manufacturers and suppliers is going to be very different. So once again, companies are asking me, how can we be proactive instead of just waiting until it starts to hurt us? So we're going to address that this week. The 10th issue that they brought up, want to talk about, is what is the current status of online sales in building materials? What should people want to know? What's going on? We can imagine that people can buy a tool or a paintbrush from Amazon or order it from Home Depot, or maybe a faucet or a thermostat. But as we start to get as it moves up the ladder to bigger, heavier, more products that require, exact measurements and choices that maybe have traditionally best been made in person. What's happening there? What is the role? Should we be selling from our website? How can we help Lowe's and Home Depot if we sell to them? What is the role of Amazon, and what should be our relationship? When we have customers who are aggressively selling online, how should that work for us? So there's a lot of questions there about what is going on. And I've got a really great, experienced person that's been very successful, taking a company in 3 years to $3 million division just in online sales. So we're going to address that. The 11th point is, how do we improve the performance of our sales team? When you look at a salesperson, the salaries and expenses of a salesperson are one of the largest expenses, especially when you step back and say, how many customers can a salesperson meet with or communicate with one-on-one per day, per week? And you start to do the math, and it certainly starts to look expensive. So there's a realization that salespeople still have a critical role. But as all these things are changing, how can the company assist or support the sales team to make them more effective and more efficient? And there's many ways to do that we're going to also address this week. And then the final and 12th issue they want to discuss is, how do we better use the data that is finally available to us in the building materials industry? Our industry is so used to making decisions on subjective opinions. I'm reminded of a large company that spends $400,000 or more at the builder show in their exhibit. And I asked one of their marketing people, what will be the measure of success? And he looked at me and said, well, in about 20 minutes, the CEO is going to walk by the booth, and if he likes the booth, it's a success. And I thought, I would fire you. That is your measure of success, because now with everything we do, you can get data and you can measure the performance. You can say, we did this, we got this many inquiries. Those inquiries were of this quality. Our salespeople were able to meet with them, and 6, 9, 12 months later, we now have a new customer that's buying this volume from us. So we can go back now and say, what was the return on that $400,000 investment? And so there's so much data available today that has not been available in the past, that the people coming to the workshop are asking us, how can we start to use this data when we're not used to using it? So that's the final point that we're going to address. And so I want to say, if you're facing, some of these same issues, I'm going to be providing solutions to these in my newsletters as well as in future podcasts in the coming weeks. And there's another issue that I didn't address here on the top 12 that the attendees are interested in. Let me know what that would be, because I'd like to add that to my list of subjects to research and write or talk about. One last little commercial here. If this sounds of interest to you, I hope you will consider coming to one of my future Whizard Summits. The next one will be this fall. I hope this has been of value to you. You've seen some similarities where you're not the only person or company facing some of these issues, and also that maybe there's some things that you hadn't really thought about that I've helped you uncover. So until next week, this is our hopefully next week. I'm trying to get on a weekly schedule. But until then, thanks for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this podcast from Mark Mitchell on building materials, sales, and marketing. We hope he gave you some fresh perspectives on how to grow your sales, and will listen to future episodes.